Would you believe it if someone told you that one of the greatest legends in basketball was humiliated simply because of his appearance? Well, that's exactly what happened. Shaquille O'Neal, a man known not only for his talent on the court, but also for his generosity and charisma, experienced something no one would expect. He was discriminated against at one of Miami's most luxurious hotels. And the most shocking part, it all began with a simple check-in. What could have been just another story of subtle racism turned into something much bigger thanks to Shaq's firm and inspiring stance. He not only faced the prejudice head-on, but also used his influence to shed light on an issue that still lingers in the 21st century. But what exactly happened that day? How did a simple act transform into a powerful lesson for the world? Get ready to dive into this story of outrage, courage, and transformation. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss real and inspiring stories like this one. Now let's find out how it all unfolded. Shaquille O'Neal wasn't just a giant on the basketball court, but also off it. On one of his frequent business trips, he landed in Miami to headline a series of charity events and entrepreneurship talks. For many, this would have been just another packed schedule, but for Shaq, every event was an opportunity to make a difference. He carried with him not just his imposing physical presence, but also a warm smile that could make any room feel smaller under the weight of his energy. As usual, Shaq chose to stay at one of the city's most luxurious hotels. The establishment was known for hosting millionaire entrepreneurs, celebrities, and influential figures. For someone of his stature, both literal and professional, it seemed natural that he'd have access to impeccable service and hospitality, worthy of his position. But the story he was about to live would prove that appearances can sometimes be deceiving. When he entered the lobby, Shaq was dressed casually, a simple t-shirt, sports pants, and a discreet cap. He had always preferred comfort over flashiness, and for him that was enough. However, his simplicity caught the wary eyes of some onlookers, as if he didn't belong in that sophisticated setting. The atmosphere, initially welcoming, began to shift in subtle ways. Judging glances, muffled whispers, approaching the front desk to check in, Shaq noticed something unusual. The hotel's staff member, who should have greeted him with courtesy, frowned and hesitated. The employee seemed more focused on assessing the former player's attire than on helping him. Shaq, as calm as ever, didn't imagine that this ordinary moment was about to turn into a pivotal episode in his life. The tension in the hotel lobby became palpable, almost tangible. Those who passed by couldn't help but notice the contrast between the staff member's attitude and Shaquille O'Neal's towering presence, even if some didn't recognize him right away. And it was there, amidst the growing unease, that a series of events would begin to reveal the lasting impact of prejudice, even against a living legend. As Shaquille O'Neal approached the front desk, what should have been a smooth check-in took an unexpected turn. A young staff member with a rigid posture quickly intercepted him. With a sharp tone and a judgmental gaze, he stated bluntly, "People like you don't belong here. This hotel is reserved for exclusive members." The words hung in the air, like an invisible punch, heavy with prejudice and insensitivity. Surprised, Shaq took a deep breath. He had faced similar situations before, but he never expected something like this in a place that prided itself on excellence and equality. For a moment, the entire lobby seemed to freeze. A few bystanders avoided eye contact, while others stood motionless, shocked by the tone of the staff member's approach. Shaq's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the evident discomfort of the employee, who continued to insist on his hostile stance. With his deep, steady voice, Shaq asked, "Do you know who I am?" But the employee's response was as indifferent as it was cruel. "It doesn't matter who you are. This is not the place for you." The weight of those words was almost unbearable. Shaq wasn't just dealing with a personal attempt at humiliation. He knew this represented something far greater. The discrimination he had just experienced was a reflection of a deeply ingrained mindset, one that judged people by their appearance before giving them a chance. And in that moment, Shaq saw an opportunity to turn a painful situation into a powerful lesson, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. As the tension escalated, other guests began to recognize Shaquille O'Neal's towering figure. Murmurs filled the air. "That's Shaq!" Some approached, trying to intervene, while others recorded the scene on their phones, capturing the absurdity of the moment. Despite this, the staff member remained adamant, seemingly blind to the reality unfolding right in front of him. Shaq didn't need to say much. His presence alone carried undeniable power, but he decided to wait for the hotel manager to be called. He knew that before taking any action, it was necessary to expose the truth of the situation. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, and every second felt longer than the last. Everyone wanted to know, how would this end? The hotel manager finally arrived at the lobby, visibly uneasy about the commotion that had already drawn too much attention. The moment he spotted Shaquille O'Neal, the man froze for a second, perhaps trying to process how a sports legend was at the center of such a humiliating scene. With hurried steps, he approached, attempting to smooth things. "Over? Mr. O'Neal, please accept my apologies. There must have been some misunderstanding." But Shaq, with the calm of someone who knew this moment carried a greater purpose, raised his hand, stopping the rushed apologies. "This isn't about who I am. It's not about my name or my fame. It's about how you would treat anyone else who looks like me." Those words, spoken firmly, echoed through the lobby, hitting everyone present. The manager, now visibly uncomfortable, didn't have an immediate response. He tried redirecting the conversation to fix the mistake, but Shaq wasn't interested in special treatment. He wanted something more. He wanted this moment to serve as a lesson for everyone there. While the manager and the staff member exchanged nervous glances, some guests murmured among themselves, surprised by Shaq's calm yet impactful stance. He hadn't raised his voice or made threats, but his tone carried undeniable weight. The situation, which had started as a blatant act of discrimination, was now evolving into a collective reflection on respect and equality. And Shaq, with his imposing presence, seemed to lead this transformation effortlessly, using only his words. The staff member, who had remained defensive until now, began to back down. Perhaps it was the weight of Shaq's words, or maybe it was the late realization that he had been wrong from the start. Regardless, he had no more arguments, and as the atmosphere began to calm, Shaq turned to the guests watching the scene and said something no one expected. "This isn't just about me. This is about all of us. Respect should be for everyone, always." The tension in the room slowly dissipated, but Shaq's words lingered in the air. He wasn't seeking revenge or special recognition. He wanted change. And as he walked to his room with the manager at his side, it became clear that this episode would leave a lasting mark, not just on the hotel, but on everyone who had witnessed it. The impact of that moment was only beginning to unfold. In the days that followed, the incident began to resonate in unexpected ways. The hotel, fully aware of the gravity of what had occurred, issued a public apology and even offered Shaquille O'Neal a free stay at any of their properties as a form of reparation. However, Shaq declined it all. To him, this wasn't an issue that could be resolved with benefits or headlines. He wanted something bigger, something that could make a real difference. "I'm not interested in compensation. I'm interested in change," he stated in a private communication to the hotel. Shaq then suggested a more practical approach: internal training on equality and diversity for all staff members. He made it clear that the intention wasn't to humiliate or punish anyone, but to transform the way people are treated, regardless of their appearance or social status. Initially concerned about their reputation, the hotel agreed to the suggestion, For Shaq, this was just the beginning of something that could impact not only that establishment, but the entire industry. As news of the incident began to circulate, Shaq maintained his discreet stance. He wasn't seeking media attention, but his story inspired discussions on social media and even on television programs, where experts debated not just the racism in this case, but the exemplary way Shaq had handled it. His response not only shed light on a systemic issue, but also demonstrated that indignation can be transformed into meaningful change. The moment also prompted personal reflections for many of the hotel's staff. Later accounts revealed that some of them began to re-evaluate their attitudes, realizing that even subtle gestures can carry deep-seated prejudices. The impact was quiet, but transformative. And Shaq, with his calm yet firm approach, achieved something many would consider impossible: planting the seed of empathy in an environment accustomed to judging by appearances. The lesson Shaquille O'Neal left behind extended far beyond the hotel walls. His message of equality and respect resonated with people from all walks of life, showing that real change begins with small actions. But still, the question remained: how far are we willing to go to confront our own biases and build a fairer world? The incident involving Shaquille O'Neal quickly transcended the confines of the hotel where it had occurred. Although he hadn't sought media attention, his dignified response and the measures he proposed captured public interest. The story gained traction on social media, forums, and even in TV reports, where experts analyzed not only the racism involved, but also Shaq's exemplary handling of the situation. His actions not only highlighted a systemic issue, but also demonstrated how to turn indignation into real change. Within days, Shaq's approach began to create ripples. Other luxury hotels, wary of similar repercussions, started implementing preventative measures by introducing diversity and inclusion training for their staff. Shaq's lesson had gone beyond a single incident, becoming a living example of how one action can trigger a ripple effect. To many, he wasn't just a victim of racism that day. He became an agent of change, using his influence to create something much greater. At the same time, the public felt deeply connected to Shaq's story. This wasn't just about a famous man facing a humiliating situation. It was about the struggles of millions who had endured similar experiences, but never had the platform to voice them. The identification was immediate, and thousands of messages poured in on social media, filled with support and emotional accounts. Shaq, as always, responded with humility, reiterating that his goal wasn't to be treated as an exception, but to ensure that no one was treated as inferior. The emotional impact of the incident was profound. Many of those present that day reported a change in perspective. Hotel employees admitted to reconsidering the way they viewed and treated others. Guests who witnessed the episode shared their experience with friends and family, perpetuating the message of respect and equality. Thus, what could have been just another story of discrimination turned into a powerful lesson in humanity. Shaq's calm and deliberate response left everyone with an essential reflection. How long will we allow prejudice to dictate how we relate to one another? His firm yet purposeful stance served as a call to action, reminding everyone that equality begins with small, everyday actions. And although he moved on with his packed schedule, the impact of that day would never be forgotten by him or by those who experienced or heard his story. Shaquille O'Neal's story is more than a tale of prejudice. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of injustice, it's possible to respond with dignity and purpose. His calm yet firm reaction showed that real change begins when we confront bias, not with anger, but with the intent to educate and transform. And the impact of this? It extends far beyond the walls of that hotel. What can we learn from Shaq? That our actions, no matter how small, have the power to echo and inspire real change. So the question remains, how do you react when you face or witness injustice? Are you willing to turn discomfort into a lesson for yourself and others? If this story inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories like this. Stories that make you think, feel, and act. Change starts with each of us.